Lukey over here at Life Food, Long Island, coming to you live. On this day, October 10th, 2012, this voice is coming to you from the furthest reaches of space, deep inside, presenting the incredible, the amazing, Dr. David Jubb with the universe inside our mind. Dr. Jubb, as always, it's a great pleasure to be with you here. All of you listening, welcome to this program. Dr. Jubb, thank you.
G'day, mate. I'm really glad to be here with everybody. Got a really great program. Just going to be talking a little bit about the heart and things here in the universe inside our mind. And I'll remind some of my most amazing family members, Dancing Cloud and Sun Eagle, out here. And we're looking at a beautiful grounds to make a ceremonial grounds and a lodge and some things, which is here in the America, just sort of on the border of Mexico and that, and it's a very beautiful a high desert mountain area where we are just at the moment. Yeah, so we just pause just for a moment in our day where we are. So how's everything going there? Good?
Yeah. Really good.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope actually that we can keep our signal where we are, because I'm sort of really in the mountains a little bit here. But anyway, the heart, Lukey, the heart is the most electrically powerful generator, in the human body, and the red blood cell. Corona, well, you could say a red blood corpuscle, because it's really not a cell. But it has a corona discharge, and it's extremely, very, very, very bright red as it's energized. And anyway, so it's blood, as it's discharged from the heart, really glows very, very bright red. And in its spent state, of course, it's really much darker. But the heartbeat, really is a fluid, acoustical phenomenon, meaning sound. And deep inside, the body, the heart, in a chamber, we've talked a bit about, and people could look into this. It has a really beautiful, the upper chamber has a very rough cut shape, and it's perfectly shaped to absorb all the percussion and the vibration. And also, too, it's so amazing that the heart is in its own pericardium sac and slips frictionless, without any friction, and it's not anchored to any structure, but just in space. And this causes it to have a perfect ability to be a resonator as an instrument, And so the bone in the skull is made, with very, very smooth, sort of like you could say like a marble-like calcium, if you could look and see in the world like a granite even, in comparison. And in the brain, we have these gorgeous, beautiful lakes and very large ventricles and small in the brain, and these large ventricles and lakes act as acoustical resonators. And the cochlea, which, that's sort of like a little snail-like shell, the cochlea, in our inner ear, senses acoustical phenomenon, and, the Fibonacci matrix as the whole body does. But that this cochlea, for sensing sound, is in the finest bone structure of our body. And when we would look at the bones of ourselves, you could see how incredibly fine the bone is, right there where the cochlea is, where listening is. And the cochlea and these sensing acoustical phenomena in the finest bone matrix in the body, it allows a very high fidelity to be happening, in your sensing. And you've got, fluid that really is flowing very nicely, and 2 liters of fluid at least is flowing from the top, more or less, of the mouth and nose, and at least a couple of liters flows every day, and that flows down into the intestinal tract. And that ignites zinc and hydrogen that passes over the hydrochloric acid, of the upper stomach, and this flux creates a substance called nascent hydrogen and oxygen. And this is oxygen newly formed and hydrogen newly formed, and it can have 2 or 3 protons, my goodness, and many spare electrons. It's the most powerful antioxidant on the earth because it's the smallest, and it can carry many electrons. So an antioxidant really can only carry 1 electron, no matter how big it is, more or less. But at least it has to carry 1. But these carry 2 or 3 even, and they're extremely small, you see, so they can just about go anywhere. But the stomach creates this nascent hydrogen and oxygen, and it's excited in its state in its excited state in its flux in the stomach. Any element next to it is reduced completely to its proton and electron state and becomes sort of a biological, sort of electrical soup as the color of life. It's sort of colorless biological photon light. Biological light. So hydrogen isotopes carry these spare electrons, and this results in this biophotoelectric effect, an energy to run your brain beautifully fertilized with these stone and things inside your earth garden you're wrapped around, and existing sort of in this gorgeous, beautiful, holy dirt, that we've been talking about, and this really does increase electron bombardment, and you've got in your intestinal tract discontinuity, irregularity in ionized and positive and negative charge ions, and that creates ionization. And so then you really have a very powerful biomagnetic field, in your tummy and in digestive tract. And Holy Dirt really does assist to help increase all of this. And this biomagnetic field, it really lengthens and concentrates itself and comes more to the surface at night. And during the day, the solar radiation sort of minimizes it a lot. But in the day, this biomagnetic field really shrinks. And then there's this sort of binary system that's up in deep space. And by the dog star Sirius that we've been talking about in our solar system really is a binary system. And so that you've got twin parts sort of everywhere, basically. And you've got lots of that, and that's the structure of matter. And, of course, we live in this sort of a binary system. And the dog star Sirius and our sun are sister suns, so that is. And they travel on the same gravitational alignment as our sun does around Alcyon, which is the box. It's the canyon. It's amazing that I've just been to the canyon Alcyon here in San Diego. But anyway, that's another story. But this is a really binary system that's set up in deep space by the dog star Sirius, and you and I, we've got in the furthest reaches of space inside ourselves, of course, we've got this representation in our digestive tract, all the planets, of course, all the plants, everything has a shape. And, of course, we've been talking about 432 and how this is 12 overtones being present nicely for resonation, in how sound can create shape. And how, plants lean away from 4-beat, and they just love 357-911. It's so gorgeous, and they lean toward this, and it's an elliptical or an odd beat energy, which is round dust, not square us. And the environment really can have, of course, geopathic sorts of stress and dirty electricity, pollution, and all metal frames that we've been talking a bit about. That's so very important. People can be understanding how this works. But all that metal frames in your room, around light fixtures and things, or within the vicinity of any such field, it emits and radiates out this radiant energy, and that energy which it could be radiating to be not so friendly at all, if it's coming from the electric power plant sort of thing, which could really be put to be more clean fuel. But anyway, that's maybe another story. But a mortal oscillatory rate does exist, and that, for instance, if anybody does put a pure note of C, it certainly can shatter just the crystal, right? And certainly the phenomenon of the sound and chirping and things like that we've been talking a bit about, enzyme activity and that sort of thing, it really does assist with biology, and all of these things fit into a psychoacoustic, which is the field of study that we've been talking a bit about. And sound really does have this sonic effect, and certainly sound being applied in agriculture as sonic bloom, which causes fallen nutrient to be absorbed more, and plants to be able to resist drought and that sort of thing, and provide gorgeous amounts of produce. But humans even use sound, of course, that we've been talking about in echolocation and even in detecting motion and spatial dimension. And body and biological function certainly is enhanced through sound. And certainly, as we've been talking in our program here, sound can have also been applied in a manner that it inhibited biologics. And astrophysics really is a music and a dancing, could we say, to this music. which our planet and these celestial orbs do, and you and I even do, in the same laws, natural laws governing us. But astrobiology and astrophysics are each, in their own right today, epistemologies, and that's pretty amazing, you see, the ancient ones, they really used the whole Earth, really, as a giant resonator. We've been talking a little bit about this, and that assisted to keep it lined up, in time of disaster and cosmic impact and electromagnetic disturbance. And that it is so that it's amazing that the very land mass, which is like a tongue, which can be shown to be in the very center of a 188-degree circle dynamics, which is in a rectangle pattern that it fits on the Earth, happens to be the earthquake fault zones, which follow these Lorenz and Hartmann lines, and the Lorenz runs sort of diagonally, and the Hart lines run vertical and horizontal. And you've got these Hartmann and Lorenz lines, and where there are points, there are powerful sort of nadi points on the Earth, and they just happen to be because of its geometry, how a sound wave is refracted inside the Earth when the one side of the Earth could have hit something, as a woofer, does, as a woofer speaker does, and it vibrates the Earth. It kind of shook things up. But the Pyramid of Giza is put on this beautiful tongue of land, and on this tongue, which can be shown like a body, has very many discontinuity layers of lime and paramagnetic material to carry positive and negative flows underneath itself within the tongue. And in that escarpment, which really is a tongue, and of course the mouth is opened up recently, and you can even go to Google and see how much it's opened. In this tongue, you have a body of a throat, and in that throat you have the Pyramid of Giza. And the Pyramid of Giza is set up to be as a body, and the expression of a body on the Earth of a human being or a body, and its digestion created energy that it brought forward from the Earth's current and poles, and it was a natural energy that when it was put into the grid that followed the Orion constellation perfectly, they caused everything to be in that valley around 80 miles wide of the pyramids, an extremely rich, fertile valley where, of course, back in these days, you've got a beautiful, beautiful Garden of Eden, because you've got a lot of water back then, yeah. But it certainly could be shown that it did line the Earth up, and it absolutely is still to this very day in this very, very central matrix, and that does have a network of pyramids that are at a 52-degree angle, and by 3 dimensions represents gravity's curvature. So I think personally these people had such an enormous intelligence, but that it can be perfectly shown to be reverse engineered, that the pyramidal complex did line the Earth up so that most of the meteorite impact would land in the Pacific and in the ocean. be shown that it does correlate perfectly with the black hole, which has been designed to work powerfully in the past, which has more basalt rock and stone put there in this structure than the whole wall of China. And it's so enormous that it's just like going blip, blip for anybody that's looking at the Earth from outer space. And it's an extremely black hole made out of basalt rock right there in Nan Madol. And that's 1,500 miles south of Japan and about 1,000 miles, 900 miles north of New Guinea in the Pacific. And when that was functioning, it can be shown how amazingly located that was, put to be in the absolute magnetic eye of the Earth, Lukey. And it can be shown that the structure that is there, which the natives say was floated, which would have taken people such an enormous civilization to have built, and did feed an extremely large population of people back then in the Pacific, called Mu. And this is the time before Lemuria, but that's another story that we'll get to. But anyway, this network of pyramids really does have this 52-degree angle and does have a three-dimensional representation of gravity's curvature, wobbling by a binary beat put by our sun being part of a binary system, which is the dog star Sirius. And the pyramid placed on the Earth, the survivors of Atlantis built this, we've been talking about, as a memorial, really, just to really also to open up a stargate in ourselves that can protect the Earth in times of calamity, and still to this very day work to some degree, though in the days when water flowed around the pyramid and the water pump worked, gravity pump worked perfectly in the pyramid, it did generate an enormous energy field, which could run all the electrics back then. But anyway, that's another story. But it is so amazing, that it absolutely can be shown how geometrically, amazingly put, all these amazing structures are, and how a very, very similar dimension has been put within these. But beyond the dog star Sirius, you've got Betelgeuse. And Betelgeuse, is a red dwarf star, and it's 1.5 light years away, and it's estimated really to be about 95,000 astronomical units from our sun. And Betelgeuse is a huge red dwarf, and our over 80% of our suns in the universe are part of a binary system as a source of life inspired for intelligent beings. And in the bronze and silver, gold and dark ages that pass, our sun travels backward and up and down through the galactic plane. And on December the 21st, 2010, was its entering of this. And anyway, the ancient people and the natives talk about two suns coming to be. That would be for 2 weeks, and that can have occurred as a result, certainly, of a supernova. But as a result of this, they say that then there'll be no darkness anywhere on the Earth for 2 weeks, that this occurs. And this is a sun that's a type 2, and like Betelgeuse going supernova. But it's curious because there's such a powerful surge of energy, whisper-like, as we come into this plane where we are and we pass through, And anyway, Helios is 200 times bigger than our sun. And, in the last 7,000 to 10,000 years, we've been more sort of in the dark ages and passing over this. And space is really now starting to get squeezed again as these stars are starting to come back toward each other. And and the Spherical Pisces is growing, and a golden age is coming back into being. And we're 900 years back into this golden age, coming more as light is coming back into our being. And you see, there's a red supergiant, this Betelgeuse, and it extends in size past Jupiter. So if you could see our sun, it would go all the way out to Jupiter, and that's how large it is. And it's our eighth brightest star in the sky in the constellation of Orion. And a common center of gravity exists, so that a solar day is really 24 hours and a sidereal day is 23 hours and 56 minutes. So it's a little short of 24 hours. And Nibiru is a brown dwarf and with its 7 planets, and it's really a solar system in its own right. And it typically is having around a speed of around about 3,500 miles per hour. But it's picking up its speed as it's coming more and more toward us, and its highly elongated orbit of 3,600 years reaches out very much in the direction of Sirius. Are you with me, mate?
Yes, Dr. Joe. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hopefully they're still hearing me. Sorry. But anyway, if Nibiru is coming in, definitely was involved in Noah's flood, right, which we will be talking about during our program coming up in the future. We will be talking more about the sinking of Atlantis and the Tower of Babel and the Hebrew Exodus and these sorts of things that we do. A lot of us know about a bit. But Nibiru really did have a very powerful condition imposed during these times that we called the crossing. And so people started wearing the cross a bit, and using that. But this is a time of a backward C shape, which is really an empty tomb. And this is the living Christ and Tankashila inside, which is about a warmth and blood. And it's really beyond anything historical. Yeah. But every 12,000 years or so, Nibiru, of course, we've been talking a bit, and the Earth can have found themselves on the same side, honest to God, and that when that can have occurred, there is a locking on magnetically, and there could be only 20 million miles completely there, and reversing our poles and erasing all on the surface. There could be a 3-mile high tidal wave, and a 1,000-foot shock waves, and the electromagnetic frequency pulse disturbances, and individuals can have their memories even erased during time like that, and that can happen within even half an hour, you see. But when this has occurred, the natives talk about this. They say there will be a beautiful winged, horned appearance. And the natives use the colours red, black, and white primarily for people to see this. And they can sometimes have a little bit of orange, pink, and blue in there. But it was black, red, and white. And it was a V shape. And you've got this enormous V shape that starts to appear. And it's a winged horned appearance, and it goes behind the sun. And there's a big, enormous dust cloud that's popped right up into a V-shaped by our sun streaming magnetism magnetism of this double triple sort of speed breakaway that occurs. So a double triple speed sort of breakaway has to occur as it happens. And the sun's traveling through space, of course, itself, and it has this sort of like funnel V shape that you can see this enormous dust of red coming up that comes out like wings. But the sun turns black as sackcloth when that happens, and the moon turns red for a while, and the stars sort of roll around a little bit as the pole sort of adjusts and shifts. And there can be a 50 to 100,000 mile dust cloud that we do pass through, and that certainly in the past when this has happened, it always has around about a 20 pound on average meteorite whacking, and so that kind of mostly has occurred in the sea, in the Pacific and things, which you can have a little bit of a look into, but we're going to be talking more about this. And it's amazing that the Earth could line itself up in times of a bit of a disturbance, but we could understand how this could happen, Anyway, it's amazing because the Oort cloud, when this 3,600 year interval occurs with Nibiru, as it comes in, the Oort cloud is a cloud of water and comets and asteroids and things, and all of a sudden it just drops off into space. And that's the end of our solar system. So that's called the Oort cloud. And when Nibiru comes through, it disturbs that Oort cloud a bit, and then things can be in a little bit of another order, and slowly but surely things can whack into each other a bit. But certainly things come in and out, and it's not necessarily stable just planets that we know of in our solar system, which is pretty amazing. But certainly meteorite impacts and things like this have sort of really been not an uncommon sort of occurrence and things, But in just sort of finishing up our program today a little, I've got some people waiting for us, and we're really looking at some land for a lodge, and I'm really doing what I can for us to be able to continue our story. That there is interest in things. But anyway, I'm so glad that we're coming to you, and this is Dr. David Jubb, and this is Lukey, and this is the universe inside our mind. And I know that it's being broadcast there from Long Island, New York, and we're coming to you live from about 20, 30 miles out of El Cajon here in San Diego, as we're going up to have a little bit of a look at the ceremonial grounds. But Nibiru really used to orbit Sirius B, which is a twin star of the dog star Sirius B, very small in comparison to Sirius A. But celestial dynamics, in 450,000 BC, Nibiru was very, very close by. And Nibiru's orbit is far out into space, and then sometimes it gets closer into Sirius, and otherwise, and then sometimes into our sun. But the observed annual increase, Lukey, and the absolute increase of precessional rate is due to an external influence, and this which I'm explaining explains this influence, and it's not due to the Earth's axial motion at all, as people have thought, but yet it really is explained exactly, with the expectation being this in a binary star system, like our sun is, with the dog star Sirius. And they're oscillating toward and also away from each other. And at the moment they're coming toward each other, Lukey, and the velocity and acceleration increases until its greatest at its closest approach, and then perihelion occurs, and then a decrease to reach its furthest point of separation, and then the Earth precession is an evidence that our solar system really is in this binary system. and the ancient Indians had such a powerful scientific understanding of our universe beyond your wildest imaginations, mate. I'm telling you. You know what I mean? And they did know how to cloak and create invisibility and a whole range of things, which hopefully we can get into a little bit more. But the Dog Star Sirius certainly, and our sun have a 25,772 year cycle, you know, yet this time kind of not had to have been necessarily constant, but the Dog Star Sirius and our solar system sort of has this pattern of 25,772 years, and then there's the disturbing of the Oort cloud, certainly, and on the outer edge of our solar system, you've got a creation of very serious sort of comet-like threat to the Earth and asteroids and things, and certainly the Oort cloud and asteroid and comet bodies on our outer edge of our solar system, you know, have really occurred. And I really would love in our future program here that's coming up, if it's all right, to talk a bit about how outer space exists inside your inner garden that you're wrapped around. You know what I mean? And that there's a golden age really that we're approaching in our binary system, and it's amazing. It's possible for us to talk about this golden age being approached and how this creates meaningful change, and how the Earth really continuously passing through this sort of shooting gallery, I guess you could say, as comets. And that the Dog Star Sirius really does disturb our sun's Oort cloud every 25,772 years approximately, and this is equivalent really to the mass die-off and even all the dinosaur extinctions and the Earth precession is certainly evidence of the sun being in a binary system. Yeah. But anyway, both stars really do oscillate in and out, and you've got a paramagnetic and a diamagnetic functioning going on there. And from each either growing vescoprizes or thinning that diamagnetically, and having maximum golden age or a thinning of such by the stars as this incurs as they're moving toward each other now versus having been apart for a period of time to their ephelion point. And their perihelion is being incurred in our solar system by Nibiru coming in now. So we're moving toward our perihelion point in our solar system as Nibiru's crossing is coming in. Anyway, this is Dr. David Judd. This is Lukey. This is the universe inside our mind. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day as you've been tuning into our program. And do please tune in to our future program as it is tomorrow. And we're doing what we can to do this on the fly. Anyway, love you guys, and we're going to catch up to you in a future show.
Love you, mate. Thank you, Dr. Jubb. What an amazing show, folks. If you're listening, I don't know that you could have heard a story like this before. I don't know that you could have heard a story like this before. I don't know that you could have heard a story like this